Page 8. Question and answers. Question 1. Write a note on the 18th century drama with reference to the contribution of Sheridan. Answer. The drama of the 18th century did not reach the same high level as the novel. In 1737, the Licensing Act cut at the very heart of drama, and all regular dramatic presentations were confined to Drury Lane and Covent Garden. D-R-U-R-Y, Drury, L-A-N-E, Lane, and Covent, C-O-V-E-N-T, Covent Garden. Further, the middle-class commercial classes were gaining sufficient influence to impose their views on the themes of the plays. These factors were to a great extent responsible for the comparative barrenness of English drama in the 18th century. There developed, however, a drama of sensibility in which pathos, P-A-T-H-O-S, and delicacy and refined sentiments found a place. Colley Gibber, name of a play, for instance, is such a play as The Careless Husband. Colley Gibber, for instance, in such a play as The Careless Husband, while he retained much that belonged to the manners tradition, superimposed moral and didactic elements. More important than Cibber was Sir Richard Steele, who wrote a number of plays of sensibility: The Funeral, Lying Lover, The Tender Husband, The Conscious Lovers. John Kelly wrote The Married Philosopher, which has the merit of being the first adaptation in English of a French sentimental work. Sentimentalism arose in the midst of Restoration license and flourished quite independently of continental examples. Sentimental comedy displays the ordinary licentious comic characters and themes of the Restoration comedy of manners, with a moral ending in which rapid conversations are attributed to those who had been in the earlier acts presented as sinners. Nothing shows better the hypocrisy of the age. The reformers were satisfied because virtue triumphed in the end. The pleasure-loving spectators were willing to witness the wholly artificial conversions for the sake of careless intrigue and loose dialogue of the preceding scenes. While the age extolled the moral virtues, it lost the brilliant dramatists like Congreve and Etherege. E-T-H-E-R-E-G-E. The depths of sentimentalism were reached by dramatists such as Hugh Kelly, H-U-G-H, Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y, and Richard Cumberland. The curious reader can turn to such a play as Cumberland's The West Indian to find how every human issue can be obscured in the welter of emotions. Hugh Kelly wrote False Delicacy, The School for Wives, A Word to the Wise. The other plays belonging to Cumberland are Fashionable Lover, The Jew, The Wheel of Fortune. All these plays are characterized by the sentimental qualities. They painted not the men and women they saw around them, but abstractions conceived in their own mind. They were written to improve the morals and not to amuse the spectators. They did not have the gaiety and brightness which are the marks of true comedy. From these depths the drama was rescued by Goldsmith and Sheridan. Goldsmith's two plays, The Good-Natured Man and She Stoops to Conquer, succeeded in bringing back a breath of genuine humour and humanity to a drama stifled with excessive emotions. The plot of She Stoops to Conquer, though recklessly improbable, is adequate to maintain the humour of the situation and the clear delineation of the characters. In atmosphere, it approaches more closely Shakespeare's romantic comedy. There breathes over the play an atmosphere of romantic sentiment, not the sentimentalism of Goldsmith's contemporaries, but a peculiar blend of intellect and emotion which colours the figures and words of Hardcastle and Tony Lumpkin. Page 9. Sheridan came forward to protest against the prevailing sentimentalism with a greater distinction. In the preface to the Rivals, he proclaimed his mission. He declared amusement as the basic purpose of comedy. He wrote mainly 3 comedies, The Rivals, The School for Scandal, and The Critic. With Sheridan, something of the brilliance of Restoration dialogue returned to comedy, though without the narrow and immoral Restoration world. Instead, a more genial and romantic atmosphere is created, the atmosphere of Shakespeare's romantic comedy. The characters are firmly presented with clarity, reminiscent of Jonson, though the atmosphere of Sheridan is gayer. His plays are a curious mixture of satire and romance, which was the aim of Shakespeare's comedy. Question 2. Give an account of Sheridan's life and works. Answer. Richard Brinsley, Brinsley, Butler Sheridan, 1751 to 1816, was born in Dublin. His father, Thomas Sheridan, was the actor-manager of the Theatre Royal in Dublin. His mother was the author of novels and comedies. Young Sheridan was educated at Harrow, Harrow. After a romantic courtship, he married Elizabeth Linley, Linely, a popular concert singer. Imitating Austen, he wrote gay anapestic bits on the gaieties of Bath. Imitating Austen, he wrote gay anapestic bits on the gaieties of Bath. His theatrical career began with The Rivals. Entering Parliament in 1710, he gave up the theatre for even greater theatricalities in the House of Commons. In 1782, he was Under Secretary of State, and in 1783 he was Secretary of the Treasury. Sheridan was an intimate of the Prince of Wales, even composing the love letters dispatched by His Royal Highness. Sheridan was an intimate of the Prince of Wales, even composing the love letters dispatched by His Royal Highness. The years after his first wife's death in 1792, Sheridan married the daughter of the Dean of Winchester. He died virtually in poverty. Sheridan wrote a comic opera, The Duenna, Duenna, in 1775. Its long popularity was due to ingenious plotting and to its music. Another play, A Trip to Scarborough, is a competent version of Vanbrugh's Vanbrugh', Vanbrugh's Relapse. Sheridan's last play, Pizarro, Pizarro, 1799, adapted from the popular Kotzebue, Kotzebue, adds nothing to his fame. Sheridan's fame rests on 2 comedies, The Rival 1775 and The School for Scandal 1777. Another play, The Critic, is a burlesque. Another play, The Critic 1779, is a burlesque, Burlesque. It satirizes the playwrights and critics of the time who favor sentimental comedy and Augustan tragedy. The Rivals boldly declares anti-sentimentalism. Lydia Languish is a sentimental girl who will not consider a tame and conventional marriage. Hence the wealthy Captain Absolute woos her under the disguise of the dashing but penniless Ensign Beverley. Lydia's aunt Mrs. Malaprop forbids the apparently inappropriate marriage. Bob Acres, suitor for Lydia's hand, is goaded by the fiery Sir Lucius O'Trigger to challenge Beverly to a duel. The cowardly Akers is spared a deadly combat when Absolute's identity is revealed. In relief, Akers relinquishes the girl to his rival. In the subplot, the sensibilities are reversed, with Falkland the sentimentalist paired off with the intelligent Julia. The characters are derived from a long tradition of stock characters, but are realized with vividness and liveliness. Mrs. Malaprop has immortalized herself with her, quote, nice derangement of epitaphs, unquote. The cross-pairing of four lovers confronts a sentimentalist with an anti-sentimentalist in each instance, and anti-sentimentalism wins in both cases. Lydia is a delightful portrait of the fashionable romantic girl, her head stuffed with the nonsense of giddy love stories. Bob Acres, with her essential cowardice and boastfulness, Bob Acres, with his essential cowardice and boastfulness, is one of the superb low comics of the stage. Page 10. O'Trigger is a hot-tempered Irishman with a supreme consecration to the code of the duello. Falkland comes straight out of contemporary sentimental comedies. The play has a well-knit structure. The intrigue of the play is skillfully conducted. The humours of Mrs. Malaprop, Sir Anthony, Bob Acres are triumphs of theatrical genius. Sheridan revived the comedy of manners, which is related to the comedy of humours of Johnson. It gives a cross-section of the aristocracy of the time, and its dialogue sparkles with wit and humour. The School for Scandal is Sheridan's masterpiece, a comic triumph probably surpassing any other in English drama since Congreve. Sheridan here launches a twofold attack upon sentimentalism and upon scandal. He has manipulated multiple plots with superb art. The verbal ingenuity and sparkling prose equal the best of Congreve. Question 3. What is comedy of manners? Consider the rivals as comedy of manners. Question 3. What is comedy of manners? Consider the rivals as comedy of manners. Answer. The comedy of manners is a type of comedy which was early exemplified by Shakespeare's Love's Labour Lost and Much Ado About Nothing, and was brought to a high polish in Restoration comedy. This type drama had risen with Ben Jonson, who made the presentation of humours, within quotes, the mode of satirical and sometimes ludicrous portraiture in his comedies. It is called the comedy of manners because it presented the superficial habits and manners of only a section of the society, the elegant aristocracy, with their fashionable vices, intrigues, and outward glamour of polished behaviour. The manners displayed were the affectations and cultured veneer of fine society. The writers made fun of the eccentricities and affectations of the fashionable society. Its comic effect depends on the ridiculous violations of social conventions and decorum by stupid characters such as would-be wits, jealous husbands, and foppish dandies. Amorous intrigue played a very important part in the action of the drama, but its chief interest consisted in the wit and sparkle of the dialogue. Plot was subordinate to dialogue. Female characters were more important and interesting. The Restoration comedy of manners mirrored the dilettante society of the day. Dilettante. Dilettante. It has been said that Restoration comedy of manners as practiced by George Etheridge, William Wycherley, William Congreve, Sir John Vanbrugh, and George Farquhar are artificial and obscene. It was limited in scope and artificial in its choice of theme. The life depicted was an endless series of pleasures and amusements, intrigues, and social appointments. Its dialogue often bordered on the obscene. Oliver Goldsmith and Richard Sheridan revived the wit and gaiety of the Restoration comedy of manners, but avoided its indecency. The Rivals is a joyous comedy of manners, full of fun and mirth, and sparkles with wit and humour. The comedy of manners is the mocking image of a carefree life. Sheridan deals with men and women who live a gay and carefree life in the fashionable health resort of Bath. They have no interest in life except making love and indulging in amorous intrigue. The atmosphere of Bath is full of intrigue, affection, duelling, and elopement. Lydia, the heroine, dreams of elopement, anonymous letters, and romantic marriage with a penniless ensign. Mrs. Malaprop, the old aunt, carries on love intrigue with Sir Lucius under the assumed name of Delia. Falkland and Julia quarrel over love. Bob Acres is a typical coward braggart. Page 11. Scandal, gossip, flirtations figure largely in the lives of the young. Their activities consisted in gathering in the ballroom or in the tea room and in hovering over the card tables. The Rivals is modelled on the Restoration drama, but it is a comedy of manners of the late 18th century. It depicts the gay, carefree, frivolous life of the 18th century Bath. He presents characters in their respective eccentricities and draws from their interaction material for fun and mirth. It is artificial both in plot construction and in the depiction of a limited section of the society of his time. The situations through which the characters move in the plot are excellently manipulated, and the characters are puppets in his hands. As in the Restoration comedy of manners, the most effective appeal of the Rivals lies in its dialogue, witty, humorous, sparkling with intellectual vivacity. Yet Sheridan introduces the sentimental episode of Falkland and Julia. This is offered for satisfying the appetite of the audience in the sentimentality and at the same time for satirizing the sentimental comedy. Question 4. Consider the Rivals as an anti-sentimental comedy. Answer. In the prologue of the Rivals, spoken at the 10th night, Sheridan, while expressing his views on what comedy should be, criticizes, quote, the goddess of the woeful countenance, unquote. The goddess of the woeful countenance, dash, the sentimental muse, unquote. In the early 18th century, the comedies became affected, sentimental, and pathetic. In both subject matter and technique, they ceased to have any true relation to life. They reflected the false sensibility of the rising 18th century middle class. They suffer from the usual defects of the types. Virtue becomes too much a matter of pious sentiments, while laughter is drowned in tears of forgiveness or repentance. The characters remain removed from life, artificial and wooden. In Sheridan's words, quote, too chaste to look like flesh and blood, dash, primly portrayed on emblematic wood, unquote. Thus the comic purpose is defeated in the sentimental comedy. Sheridan, along with Goldsmith, reacted sharply against the sentimental vogue in comedy. Sheridan wrote two anti-sentimental comedies, The Rivals and The School for Scandal. The anti-sentimental strains in The Rivals are evident in its attack on the sentimental exaggeration of Falkland Julia, the intellectual pretensions of Mrs. Malaprop, the parental tyranny of Antony Absolute, and the romantic foolishness of Lydia Languish. The central situation is that of the young and sentimental Lydia Languish, a great novel reader who prefers the idea of marrying a poor ensign Beverley to marrying a rich young heir Captain Absolute. She thinks that money vitiates the sanctity of love, and so she would have love only, and no riches. Her devotion to false quarrels, elopement, anonymous letters, romance over trifles are the typical preoccupations of sentimental view of life. Like Lydia, Falkland, the hero of the subplot, is also a melancholic, morbidly jealous lover who is very anxious about the spirit and health of his lady-love in his absence, and always wants to test the fidelity of his beloved. Julia is sober, but prone to tears at the slightest neglect by Falkland. These characters are not concerned with the real social values and manners, and therefore passes the false and vapid sentiments. Sheridan's anti-sentimental attitude is evident in his satirical portrayal of the two guardians, the wordy Mrs. Malaprop and her oracular tongue and nice derangement of epithets, and Sir Anthony with his tyrannical attitude to his son. As a matter of fact, Sheridan burlesques the stock sentimental notion about the tyranny of older generation over the young ones. Page 12. Secondly, in the sentimental comedies, stabbing, poisoning, and duelling, and such other drastic actions were used by the dramatist to undo the theatrical tangles. Duelling dominates the fourth scene of Act 3, but they are used to highlight the absurdities of this action, and Sheridan treats this serious matter lightly and very intelligently. Sheridan makes fun of this encounter over trifling causes. These events are introduced to parody and the same events in the sentimental comedy. Lastly, The Rivals is free from the lachrymose elements of the sentimental comedy. It is, on the contrary, as Sheridan says in the prologue to the play, is full of, quote, humour, quaint and sly, unquote. Contrasted groups of characters provide the humour, and the situations are funny and farcical. Mrs. Malaprop, Bob Acres, and Sir Lucius, with their peculiar humours, are objects of fun. They create situations which are farcical. The duel scene is full of innocent mirth. Sheridan depicts the characters of Lydia, Falkland, and Julia in a spirit of pure fun. Moreover, the moral preoccupations of the sentimental comedy are absent from The Rivals. Sheridan has no purpose to teach or preach any morals, rendering, for instance, vice contemptible and virtue attractive. For he thinks that, quote, grey experience, unquote, and, quote, solemn sentiments, unquote, which abound in sentimental comedy do not suit the youthful form within quotes of comedy. The main purpose of it should be entertainment, provocation of laughter through wit and gay invention. Wit and gay invention are within quotes. Sheridan revives the comedy of manners. The Rivals depicts the gay, carefree, frivolous life of the 18th century Bath. It represents characters in their respective eccentricities and draws from their interaction materials for fun and mirth. The most effective appeal of The Rivals lies in its dialogue, witty, humorous, sparkling with intellectual vivacity. But the Falkland-Julia episode is frankly sentimental. It is worked out, satisfying the appetite for sentimentality of the audience as well as for satirizing it.